followed by our opening prayer offered by Councilman Mike Anzola. And at that time, would you stay standing? We will have a moment of silence for Officer Medden, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord God, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Pray for the Medlin family, Lord Jesus. We ask you please to open your arms around them at this time. Would you grant them guidance and protection? We pray for this meeting tonight that we have good listening and understanding of what we're going to be working on for our citizens of this great community of the city of Safford. We pray for all of our staff, our manager, our council that are here tonight, and our employees especially that we value. We ask this through Christ our Lord, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Stay standing, please.
Sorry.
Thank you. Our thoughts and prayers are for the Medlin family, and so as well as the entire community, holding them up. Brings us to item 5, which is citizen comments on agenda items. Item 6. That's going to be item 7. We're going to go ahead and close our regular meeting, and we're going to open into executive session. And so at this time, just give us a brief setup, and we're going to go into E-session, and come out of E-session, we'll go back into our meeting. Okay, thank you. We ready? All right, great. Okay, we're going to reconvene in our public meeting. We got a public hearing, the use of community development block grants. Jamie?
From Seago to give you a revised presentation of the slideshow that he did last time. And then after he does that, I will read into the record the items that we've compiled from the previous meeting and discussion with citizens. And then we'll stand for questions if you have any questions after that.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's good to be with you again. My name is Keith Dennis. I'm the Community Development Program Manager for Southeast Arizona Governments Organization. And I'm here for the redo of our first public hearing, your first public hearing for your CDBG grant, which is coming up next year. Spacebar? There we go. And I gave you a PowerPoint spiel last time. I'm going to go through it a little quicker because most of you were here for this the first time around, as were members of the public and media. But basically, we're going to talk a little bit about the different kinds of CDBG, talk a little bit about past Safford and other CDBG projects to give you some ideas, and then finally, we're going to open it up to the public to get opinions or guidance on what should be done with these funds from other stakeholders, members of the public, and of course yourselves. There's three kinds of CDBG. CDBG stands for Community Development Block Grants. Those have been around since the mid-'70s. They come through Housing and Urban Development, appropriated by Congress, and by the time they get to rural Arizona, the money's already been allocated by the feds. There's three types. There's the regional account, which is what brings me here tonight. Seago region gets about 1.3 million a year, and it goes through a little formula of population and federal poverty, persons meeting the federal poverty guidelines. And then after the little formula spits it out, each county in the 4-county region of Seago gets a portion of that $1.3 million. And the different communities in each county, which we call the subregions, they decide what the rotation is going to be and whose turn it's going to be which year. So it's Safford's turn this year. Then you've got two competitive funding rounds, the annual state special projects, which is up to $500,000 every year, very competitive. And then you have the biannual competitive Colonia set-aside, which for us is not quite as competitive because we're not competing statewide. And the pot of money is bigger, upwards of $2 million every other year. Regional account. I think I just spoke about all this, so I'm going to move on. Eligible projects. Only a city or town or a county is eligible. A unit of local government is the eligible applicant for one of these. You can't use it to just pay regular government expenses. You can't build a city hall or other government facilities except under certain circumstances like fire stations and fire trucks. You can do accessibility improvements to buildings, government buildings. Graham County's getting ready to do exactly that with their CDBG grant that they were awarded. Well, they're about to be awarded any time now. They're going to put sidewalks and handicap ramps at the county fairgrounds with their CDBG funds. And finally, little small nonprofits or special districts can sometimes be what's called the subrecipient, whereby the city of Safford would be the applicant and a local nonprofit or other agency would be the subrecipient. So those kinds of things are possible. You can use CDBG for public works. You can use it for housing. You can do owner-occupied housing rehab with CDBG funds. This is something that myself and my staff are going to look at really amping that up in our region. I think our region, we have a lot of nice old houses that have a lot of character. Some of them are 100 years old. My house in Bisbee turned 100 last year. And It's better than having to build new stuff. You can just fix up houses where maybe there's people that are on fixed income and they didn't budget out for needing a new roof 15 years after they retired. Maybe that house can be repaired, and that that building block of human infrastructure, a house, can be preserved for the next generation. It's just a thought. It's something that can be done with CDBG funds. You can also use it to purchase land for new housing or for Habitat for Humanity type projects. You can also do down payment assistance. So there's all kinds of housing type uses you can do with CDBG is the point. And public works and facilities like parks, senior centers, libraries, shelters for victims of domestic violence, homeless shelters. You can do public services. You can fund a new position at a Head Start, let's say, as long as it's 25% or more additional capacity over what's already there. So if you got 4 teachers at the Head Start, you'd have to hire at least one more to give it a 25% bump in the service capacity of whatever it is you're funding. But all those things that I just mentioned, public works, facilities, public service, etc., they have to meet one of 3 national objectives that's mandated for community development block grants, and those are primarily benefit low to moderate income households or persons, prevent or eliminate slum and blight conditions, or meet other urgent needs related to health, life and safety type issues. Many years ago, the wastewater treatment plant, or maybe one of the ponds, I think it was, down the road in Pima was in trouble, and they had a notice from ADEQ to fix it pronto, and they used their CDBG funds to get themselves out of that bind. That's the kind of thing when we're talking about urgent needs. That's just an example, a local one, of what can be done in that regard. So when we say low to moderate income people, if you're talking about fixing up that lady's house like I just talked about a moment ago, that's one household. If they qualify as low to moderate income, meaning 80% or less than the median household income for the area, then that household would be considered low to moderate income and it would qualify for housing rehab. If you're talking about a larger area, you want to make sure that at least 51% of the people in the area to be served by the project qualify as low to moderate income. That can sometimes mean doing income surveys if the census data doesn't comport with the reality that you know. Like, I know that neighborhood, I don't care what the census said, that's not as rich of a neighborhood, let's say, as the people in Washington or the Census Bureau think it is. I think we can prove it, etc. That's something that can be done to prove up those numbers to qualify a neighborhood as low to moderate income for something like sidewalks or water line or street repairs or things of that nature, or parks. Low to moderate income. Family of 4, 51,300 annual income. That's what qualifies as low to moderate income for this year for CDBG purposes. They come out with those numbers every year. They change a little bit every year. It's probably going to be about 5 to 6 months before we get that. Overall, HUD considers Safford to be 39% low to moderate income. If you have a community that the majority of the residents meet that definition, then you could do something anywhere in town that benefits people. If your town is 39% low mod like Safford is, you got to be more targeted and focused about what kind of projects you're going to do, where they're going to go. These are some of the things that we talked about a little bit last time, but I wanted to, for the benefit of everybody, just kind of revisit some of those items. Also, certain categories of people are considered to be low to moderate income for the purposes of CDBG, regardless of what their actual income is. People that are mobility challenged, that need wheelchairs or other means of getting around, for example, it's probably the most well-known example. It doesn't matter what your income is. If you need a wheelchair to get around, and there's a project that the city of Safford, or in this case Graham County, wants to do to make it so where you can get to the restroom at the county fairgrounds, that's going to qualify as low to moderate income as far as CDBG is concerned, even if you make $1 million a year. Same goes for abused children, senior citizens, domestic violence, people that are homelessness, people experiencing homelessness, etc. So here's some of the things Safford's done in the past. ADA improvements, like I just mentioned, for the public parks. Make them accessible for people with that may have mobility issues, and maybe cut down on the snakes. The Jensen Edition, water services and cleanouts. You got sidewalks north of Highway 70, east of 8th Avenue, right down the road here. Here's some other recent examples. I was asked by your staff to kind of help inspire you by just doing a little tour of some of the projects that other communities in the Seago region have done. I won't read them all, but they're there on the screen. You can see them. And there's quite a variety. You can see street improvements. You can see water line replacements, new sidewalks, parks. There's some public service stuff. You got the halfway house in Cochise County and the Boys and Girls Club remodel in Santa Cruz County. There's a lot you can do with CDBG. We won't know officially till late April or sometime in May next year, but going off this year's numbers, which are fairly reliable going forward, they change a little bit. I will say in the past several years, Seago's share of CDBG money has gone gradually up. It's been about a $70,000 for the whole region increase over the last couple of 2 or 3 years, largely owing to Pinal County going entitlement, which changes the balance of remaining funds throughout the rest of the state. Point is, we're estimating $271,000 or so for Safford for next year. You don't need any kind of matching funds. It's not a competitive grant. This is just Safford's money to do the right thing or whatever this is decided to be the best thing for your community. You can, however, combine it. You can combine her funds with CDBG. The ARPA money, no, unfortunately. I did check. But other federal funds can be combined with CDBG to give you more bang for your buck if you have the means and if it's needed. And of course, if anything is going to displace people, you've got to have a plan for that. We'll talk about that should the need ever arise. Meanwhile, tonight, this is a public hearing. Part of the CDBG program requires that guys like me come to meetings like this and give you a little dog and pony show about what CDBG is, so people understand what the constraints are and what the possibilities are, whereupon we invite the public and other stakeholders, other agencies, and people that might have an interest or a good idea for what to do with these funds to speak up and give us those ideas. So that's going to be the guidance for the path forward for Safford. In fact, you are going to get up here and read a whole list, and I'll tell you why. Whatever the city ultimately decides to do with the CDBG funds, in order to meet those public participation requirements, whatever you select has to have been in the minutes for tonight's meeting. That way nobody can say it was a surprise. Nobody ever mentioned the thing about the kitten rescue or whatever, you know. It was, then you can say, yes, it was actually brought up at the first meeting. It's here in the minutes. It gives the transparency that we need and that the federal program that we're here administering needs. So that's why there's a list coming up. But with that, I will entertain any questions that the council may have. Otherwise, I'll turn it over.
Sure. We have to give, we can't split these monies up. If we picked a nonprofit organization, the whole sum has to go to them. Is that correct?
That's a great question.
But is it correct?
It is as of the beginning of last year. No, it is, well, it turns out as of last year, maybe 2019, they recently changed the rules where you can indeed choose 2 projects as a city. If you're a county, you can pick up to 3 automatically. And sometimes, like Cochise County's done that in the past, they'll pick one for each of their districts. Normally, it's been the case that a city or town can only choose one. The change that's happened recently is you can pick one, let's call it a regular project, like a public works type project, and then you can also choose a second project if it is either public service or planning, meaning planning meaning there's all these shovel-ready projects. Washington keeps talking about all this infrastructure money. I know from 2008, the last time, they just swept around and said, who's got a shovel-ready project? And a lot of folks around here didn't have a shovel-ready project, so we missed the boat on that. This new change in the rules would allow you to say, we're going to use part of our money to do sidewalks or whatever, and then we're going to take a piece of it and we're actually going to use it to procure an engineer and have them design some stuff for us, maybe hire a consultant or SEGO to do an environmental study, so that the next time the feds say, here's free money for infrastructure, all you need to have is a shovel-ready project, we will have one. Was that too long? It probably was too long of an answer, but you can do public service projects like the halfway house that I mentioned a minute ago, or you can do planning type projects as sort of a down payment on future projects, and that's the way you can pick more than one project for CDBG. Mr.
I had a
Seal.
question based on Arnold's question. Just want to make sure I understood where he was coming from and what the rules and regulations are. I think he said we could pick more than one nonprofit, but it's not a nonprofit, it's a project, is that right? We can't give this money to a nonprofit. Or
You
we?
can. You can designate a nonprofit as the subrecipient, and you would be the pass-through agency, and the nonprofit would actually receive the funds. There's pros and cons to that. Cons, let's get the bad news out of the way first. Let's say it's a nonprofit that just formed last week, and their whole reason that they exist is because they think they're going to get some money from Safford, and there's no depth to them. They don't kind of know what they're doing other than that, and they mess the project up, and they waste all that money, and Safford is the one with their signature on the actual funding agreement with the Department of Housing, and you're on the hook for it. So it's important, if you are going to work with a nonprofit and have them be the subrecipient, that that the council has confidence that they're going to be able to follow through on their end of the deal. And of course, get it in writing. When it comes to doing two separate public service projects, I think that's a no-no. But if you guys are serious about, like, we want to do one public service with something that has nothing to do with what this other public service is, I can do some research and get back to you on that if it becomes necessary. But I want to put one little thing on this because I want to go back to answering your question, Councilman Lopez. You could look at the example of Thatcher a few years ago, one of the first ones I worked on when I first came to work for SEGO. They had one project, but it was kind of like two projects because they had one park way over here and one park way over here. And, you know, there's two completely different sites, but they were doing the same work in both locations. They hired the same contractor to do the work in both locations. So it might look, if you lived in the neighborhood, like a totally separate project from the other place, but really they were treated as one. So if you're talking about some sidewalks over here and some more over here, or do a block of streets over here where it really needs it, and then another one a couple of miles away, that's something you can do. It counts as one project.
Now, if you give, say, a nonprofit serves the whole county, but we only want them to utilize this money for our citizens here in the city limits, is that something that can be placed on there?
I'm going to give you a qualified yes. The qualification is that's a new one on me. But number two, if your subrecipient funding agreement or contract that you sign with that nonprofit saying we, Safford, are going to pass through these federal funds, and that's what we're going to do, here's what you're going to do. You're going to use these funds to serve people in Safford with whatever the services that you do. Now that can get tricky, you know, in terms of accounting and accounting for time of employees that are, maybe they're doing stuff for Safford and then the phone rings and it's somewhere out in the county, and, you know. But I think it's theoretically possible. I think the answer may be yes. When it comes to what the state and the feds are going to look at, is that nonprofit subrecipient doing a public service that benefits low to moderate income persons or people that qualify as such under those rules I just talked about, or, you know, disaster or hazard relief, or eliminating slum and blight. If it's meeting that requirement of those three national objectives of CDBG, then HUD is not necessarily going to split hairs too much about whether it's strictly in Safford, or somewhere else. I can tell you this, when a county does it like that, they can do services inside of a city. It's like, well, that's not in the unincorporated county. Well, it doesn't matter. It's in the county. So I think the answer may be yes. But if it comes to that, I could certainly get back with you guys and give you something you can stand on a little more firmly.
I'll give
Well,
you,
Can't we just do what we did in 2018, where we secured the $271,000, and we decided to do a project which we went to the public to listen to, and we took that monies and we put it in, we took monies and put it into another fund where we had staff pick 3 entities or 4 entities, so we didn't have to have all of that record is what we're speaking about tonight, and we did that. So I think that is kind of the same thing what we should probably be kicking around here too. Let the public decide where the funds get to go. But I'd like to see the $271,000 go into a fund, because, we have a lot of people down on this side of town, the north side of town, that is constantly, I'm constantly hearing Councilman Anazola needing some trash picked up, and we can't pick up the trash because we can't go on public, right of way to pick up the trash. But if we had a set aside of money that we could use, we could help that elderly person out, pick up their trash, and that can come out of that fund. So I think that we need to, move this along and find out what the public wants to do with this grant. So I'm sure that the Jamie's already had some things. I know later on down we're going to be hearing about parks. I don't know if we're planning on using some of that towards the parks and stuff, but I personally would like to see this money get used instead of, I hate sidewalks. I mean, I love sidewalks, but I hate spending this money on sidewalks because it almost seems like that's all we always do. So I'd like to secure the $271,000, whatever it is, match it into a separate account that we can choose and have staff to do either to a nonprofit or whatever, without having to have all of that information gathered to keep it legit.
well, I'll tell you where I'm going with this. The Seagull, or the area on aging, they need helps. The elderly around here needs help with ramps. Their appliances may have gone bad, and we can help them update their appliances. They, home alerts, hearing aids, phones that can help them talk to what's going on, and just they're plain home care going on. I see a lot of stuff, like you mentioned, federal government. I haven't seen them targeted in this area like that, and this could aid. And if we worked with Seago and the area aging, we could help some of these elderly people within our own community. We could help them put new windows in. We could help them get doors. We can help them with the drafts if they need a new cooler, the whole gamut. And that's why I'm asking if that can be done like
So it was none other than Seago was the nonprofit you're referring to a moment ago.
that's one, for example. Yes,
So
a
that's
big
it.
one.
That's interesting. Yeah, the thing about doing help for senior citizens is,
Yes.
like I said, people over 62, they qualify as low to moderate income. So you don't have to go, well, let's look in this census block or this census
Yes.
tract and try to shoehorn something in there that you're just doing it because, well, it's money and we have to spend it in low mod areas, and it may not be the best idea that you would have thought of if it didn't have those restrictions. Anyway, so that's something that would be targeted to a specific group that actually qualifies with no questions asked. So that's a good idea. When it comes to, there's something called emergency minor home repair, which is kind of like the lowest tier of owner-occupied housing rehab. Like, we're not necessarily going to put a new roof on your house, but anything up to $5,000 or $10,000, maybe you do need your home weatherized, or your whole heating system is shot, and here comes winter. Things like that are just kind of like, I wouldn't say Band-Aids, but just strategically, like, this house needs this one thing and it'll be fine. It just needs a new heating system and she's good to go. You can do that with CDBG funds as well. That's separate and different from that area agency on aging business you referred to a moment ago. But the AAA stuff might qualify as a public service, leaving you with the rest of the funds to do the weatherization and things. I mean, I'm just kind of brainstorming here,
and-
going off of what you're saying.
And if we left it in their hands, they could manage the money and remove all the paperwork that we would see. We didn't want to keep that monies last time because we could have been tied to a project for 15 years. And if they, that's one question I asked you last time, if they failed, are we left on the hook?
Yes.
So,
But I work with those guys, and I'll keep them straight if it comes to
Okay.
that. I mean, yeah, I've never heard that one before, but, you know, people saying, well, maybe it should go to the area agency on aging to do more of what they do well already. That's a new one on me, but I do know where they work.
well, I'd like that to be on the record, that that's something I put in it for consideration, to helping the elderly within our community.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, if it's all right, I'd like to invite,
Jamie,
Jamie.
come on.
Jamie had some things she wanted to read into the record. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. I will begin at the bottom of the list because it is the newest public input that I've received as of today. So it'll be new information to you. Graffiti removal, blight removal, 16th and Bonita, blight removal, homeless issues, rethinking, relearning and education, community gardens, improved quality of life, 16th Street cul-de-sac off of 191, new fire department, remodel old fire department, Court Street revitalization, 10th and 10th area, street improvements or park, sidewalk construction between Leif Nelson and the middle school, 8th Avenue to 11th Avenue between Relation Street and 10th Street, Jensen Addition sidewalk, Gila Avenue to Pine Avenue between East Main Street and East 8th Street, sidewalk construction near Firth Park, 8th Avenue to 12th Avenue between 8th Street and US Highway 70, sidewalk construction 3rd Street to 1st Street between 8th Avenue to 5th Avenue. And I'd also like to let you know that Hillary and I will be working on housing support programs this upcoming year, and we'll be looking at other pools of money that Keith showed you that CDBG has to offer that are competitive. So we'll be starting to work on that this upcoming year, and I'll be attending a housing symposium in January. So we will be looking at the rehab programs and the blight issues for housing as well. So that'll happen independently of whatever you choose from these items.
Would
Go ahead.
Would it help you at all if you got in contact and talked the ideas over with the supervisor of the area aging in this corner of the state?
Sure. I'd be more than welcome to speak with anybody about it.
Okay. And I enjoy him too, but the lady's awful tough too.
Both work for the same guy.
Okay.
So that's who I was talking about. Right, Laura Vita.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Any other questions?
Good. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and reconvene to our regular meeting. Item 12.1, City Manager.
Do we have any public that
Oh, I'm
wants?
sorry. You want, yeah.
to
Anybody want to speak? Going once, going twice. All right. We're going to go ahead and close and reconvene our regular meeting. Item 12.1, City Manager Evaluation Form Process. John?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. The purpose of the materials presented on this item is to seek council approval for implementation of a formalized evaluation process for the city manager position. The background on this was that it was brought by council to try to create a repeatable annual process that was more formalized and was able to set annual goals for the city manager. During a council work session on September 27th, we discussed developing that evaluation along with a process that went along with the evaluation document. The forms that I have provided in the packet do both of those things, and it contains a form that in the work session we discussed using a 3-member subgroup of council to actually develop the document. That subgroup did meet. Mayor Counts, Councilman Hemphill, and Councilman Seal were there. So the document that you see attached is the result of that meeting. Now, the document, staff worked with Bridge Group LLC. Bridge Group LLC had worked with council previously on creating the organizational expectation and guidelines document. And so what we did was we took the principles inherent in those documents, which also contained performance expectations for the city manager already, and incorporated those into the structure of documents that were submitted on the September 27th work section. So what you ended up with was a structure that was similar to the documents presented, but the content of it was based on the guidelines and expectations document, thereby making it more relevant to the city of Safford. Now, below the actual CCF, there is the actual evaluation form. Is it council's desire that I kind of go through that form in some of the sections and review what they contain and how they would work?
Mayor,
Go ahead.
there was some of them I had question on and stuff, but then as I read it, this is just to get in the position to where we got the document. In all fairness, you had no idea what your goals were, what we wanted you to do or accomplish or were headed. So some of this, as I read it, it may need tweaked a little bit later, but for now, I thought it was formed pretty good. I also liked the interaction, the word, it seemed like mutual respect between you and us, and to make sure that we do give you clear direction. So right now, it's a starting point, and I trusted in the members that helped put this together, and I liked it so far.
So, John, with all things, there's always tweaking that needs to be done, but this would be a document that we would use unless tweaking needs to be ratified, correct?
Mayor Counts, yes, this would actually be the document that we would officially adopt and use annually. Now, at some point, we could always make adjustments, but tonight, the whole purpose is to adopt it as it's written.
And I would like just to chime in and just say I appreciate Councilman Seal and Councilman Hemphill for doing a lot of work themselves and meeting on a separate occasion. They're very, very helpful in instrumenting this and putting it together. And so you guys, once again, as the fire department always says, attaboys to you guys. So.
I'll move, we approve, the city manager evaluation forms and process.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes.
Good job, Brad.
Bring us to item 12.2, employee holiday bonus. John?
Mayor and council, this is a request for the mayor and council to consider a holiday bonus of what we call a gross up, which means that's what they would actually take home of $500 for full-time employees and volunteer firefighters, and $250 for part-time employees. The funding for the bonuses would come out of our reserve funds. The reserves obviously would be the general fund and also utilities, so where the employees resided would be the reserve fund where we would take the money in order to pay the bonuses. We have done similar bonuses in the past. I believe the last one of this magnitude was in 2017. Last year, because of COVID, we didn't do a bonus, but we basically took the Christmas party money and we redistributed it to employees. It was obviously a substantially smaller amount. So the purpose of what we presented here, and the total cost of this particular option is $173,000. 60% of which would be general fund, 40% of which would be enterprise fund, so it's not all coming out of the general fund. So at this point, I would turn it over to you as a starting point for your discussion.
Mayor, I have something.
Go ahead.
I think this is pretty good, and I want our employees to know that we appreciate them and we value them. And I'd like to put a motion forth on the floor that we give our employees, instead of $500, $1,000 bonus, a holiday bonus.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. I'm going to entertain some discussion on this. So let me understand that the motion that is set before the body tonight is you're asking for $1,000 for a full-time and $1,000 for volunteer firefighters, And then that will be 500 for part-time employees. Is that what your guys' motion is going to
Yes,
read?
yes.
Okay. Any discussion?
And is this gonna come out of the same pocket?
Well, that's what we'd have to ask John for.
And is it gonna come out of the same, do you have a different pocket you wanna take it out of?
No, I'd like Mr. Cassell to answer.
And
Mayor Couch, Councilman Andazola, it would come out of the same reserve. Again, the employees in the general fund, that money would come out of the general fund reserve, and each independent enterprise fund would also fund its own employees, and the amount of money would essentially double in total from what we were originally requesting. And the funds could certainly, again, handle that financially. I think our funds are in good shape, so it is something that we could absorb fairly easily.
So still 60% comes out of the general and 40% comes out of the,
Mayor Couch, that's correct. The percentages would remain the same, just the dollar values themselves would double.
anybody else on some discussion? I think Mike must be running again for reelection next year, but
Well, you know what, I have a comment, you know, I thought about it. You know, in today's time, $500 isn't much anymore. You know, when you go shopping for different things and gifts, it's not much. And for what our employees do for us, the extra things that they step up to, I think they're well worth it.
I think so too.
I agree as well, and it's been a challenging year for, in a lot of ways. And as long as it's financially
It is.
feasible, that's the,
so the question is this gonna be 1,000 taxed or is this gonna be 1,000 in the clear?
In the clear,
Look clear the same way,
same way.
just move it up.
So we're talking about 300,000 in that neighborhood?
It'd be
About,
over 300.
Mayor
Over
Couch, Councilman Seal,
300,000.
probably about 350, 340.
And you're not touching any of the COVID relief monies.
Mayor Couch, that's correct. It would not touch those funds.
And I can hear Cabrina say the same thing. Okay. Shakes her head. Any discussion? Okay, I'm on, all those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Bring us to item 12.3, change the budget authority. Cabrina?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to bring you the budget change authority, which we would do every year when we process our financials. And this will just ratify the various changes in all of the affected operating budgets for fiscal year ending June 2021. This is just a cleanup action. It's necessary to strictly comply with the state budget laws and aligning appropriations with the actual expenditures. It will not change the overall amount adopted by each of the city operating funds. On June 22nd, 2020, Mayor and Council approved the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. With the approved budget, the Mayor and Council authorized staff and expenditure limitation of approximately $61,320,000. The approved $61.32 million was distributed to each fund and division based on the estimated department needs and specified on the state budget forms. According to our current audit firm, Henry & Horn, to stay in compliance with the state budget laws, it is necessary to evaluate the actual versus budget expenditures every year by fund, and we request that the council realign the budget authority accordingly.
So move.
We have a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 13, resolutions. One, resolution 21-33. Cabrina?
So, again, I'm here tonight to bring you the enterprise fleet management. We had discussed this previously in other council meetings, and I was given the go-ahead to go with the agreement. I'm bringing that agreement to you tonight. This will help with updating and managing the replacement of the city fleet vehicles. Attached, we have added the master lease agreement, all of the necessary documents to do so. All of the documents have been reviewed by the city attorney, Bill Sims, and he has given his approval. In the previous council meetings, it was brought to you with the agreement of 52 vehicles based on Enterprise's recommendation. However, with staff's consideration, we have reduced that to a pilot program beginning with 20 vehicles to make sure that it goes smoothly. And that menu pricing list is including just those 20 vehicles. And I do have John here with Enterprise if you have any specific questions for him.
I'll move we approve resolution number R 21-003.
Second.
Any discussion?
On the power of attorney, we still do our own insurances on these vehicles?
That is correct, yes.
And Thatcher's in on this?
Yes, they are doing it.
FEMA?
Yes.
Is there any possibility of trading vehicles between sometimes?
If it makes sense, we could look at that, but used vehicles right now, for example, don't make that kind of sense with the prices of used vehicles. But you will have access to the enterprise vehicles, whether it be from another leasing partner or from our rental fleet, if you ever need to or would like to put those into
Oh, I want to see where. And some of the examples you gave, they were doing it in 5-year intervals, and you're using 3 with us. Why the difference?
Mr. Mayor and Mr. Council.
Go ahead.
The 3 years is an average, so there will still be vehicles that you guys have that go 5 years as well, namely any police vehicles or anything with a lot of aftermarket like a utility bag. Other vehicles with less will be a little bit less than 3 years with the current vehicle market, so that's an average number. So you'll have some 5s and there'll be some that are less as well.
So we will have some 5 and some 3, you're saying, because the other cities you gave as example, you specifically said 5.
So each of the leases are written on a 60-month term, so if that's.
60, okay.
Yep, and so, but because it's an open-ended equity lease, anytime after 12 months, you can have us sell that vehicle and get a new one. And that's the same setup that the other cities have as well. 60-month terms, which gives you the flexibility to be able to do it anytime shorter than that.
And that'll be up to our motor officer to determine that?
You guys are still the decision makers, yes, so the council will decide whether and when to replace the vehicles. Right now, you're entering into the agreement with these 20, and you still have all rights of ownership with those 20 vehicles, and the option to add more vehicles if, as Cabrina said, when it goes successfully.
Okay, I think the other questions would be for the manager later on down the horizon, so.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Go ahead and vote on it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Tammy, you want to read it?
Number 33.
2133.
A resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, approving the execution of a master equity lease agreement and amendments therein with Enterprise Fleet Management for the management of citywide vehicle program and authorizing the city manager to execute the same.
Perfect, thank you. 13.2, resolution 2123, designation of a CFO for Harler reporting, whatever. Cabrina? I don't know if I did that one right. How are you going to abbreviate that?
It's just the AELR.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to be quick.
So just bringing you the resolution R 21-034, designation of the CFO for AELR reporting. This is a resolution that needs to be brought to council going forward every year. That designates me as the signer for our AELR reporting that's done with our annual audit.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Tammy?
Resolution number R21-034, a resolution of the city of Safford, Arizona, mayor and common council designating the chief fiscal officer for officially submitting the fiscal year 2021 expenditure limitation report to the Arizona Auditor General.
Okay, 13.3, resolution 2135. John?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Staff is requesting that City Council approve Resolution R 21-035, authorizing the mayor and City Council to execute the One Arizona Distribution of Opioid Settlement Funds Agreements, Participation Forms, and Release. And that's a long one. Total potential receipts under the terms of this agreement could be as high as $508,000. If you recall, we brought this in phases, so there was an MOU, then there was a second phase that got us into participation. So this phase essentially will get us to the point where we have locked in as participants to the agreements, and also will release the pharmaceutical companies from any further legal action on our part in the future. So it's both a processing document, but it also is a release form. So once we sign off on this, we can't go back and say at a later date that we're going to bring additional lawsuits against these firms. The background materials really cover stuff that we've covered in the past. It also covers some of the requirements for local jurisdictions in terms of reporting and, well, basically reporting. And then the final arbiter on us is going to be that the whole agreement is predicated on participation, right? So there's all these bonus provisions. So when I say up to $508,000, it all depends on how many other communities in Arizona sign on to the
We'll
agreement.
never see it, but we understand.
Well, so far, participation has been very high, so hopefully, the state has been very active in getting communities to participate. So in the early stages, I think 89 out of 90 participated, so, well, we'll see what we end up with.
Motion, Vice Mayor?
I move we approve resolution R 21-035.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Tammy?
R 21-035, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Arizona, approving and adopting One Arizona distribution of opioid settlement funds agreement release and participation forms for the distributor and Janssen settlement agreements.
Item 14.1, ordinance 2114, temporary business license. Tammy?
Mayor and council, so this is the first reading of ordinance O21-014. And what this is amending the temporary business license, which is currently a $50 fee for a 3-month period. And we're wanting to change that up for it to reflect more of our current events that are happening within the city of Safford. So what we're suggesting is a $12 fee that is good for a 15-day period. And then they would have to reapply for, if they have another event out of that 15-day period. And then if they know they're going to be doing more than, say 4 events within the year, then they have the option to do, just a full-time, a full year business license, a regular business license, which is a $50 fee. So this would just cover more of, some of the special events within the town, swap meets, not that we have too many of those, but it does cover just a different variety of events that are happening, entertainment shows, vehicle shows. The way the code currently reads is it actually, the city council waives that fee for any type of special events, but we'd like to go away from that and actually start requiring the vendors to get a special event or a temporary business license for the different events within City of Safford. So that way it helps us better regulate, the insurance, the TPT, that type of information that they're doing within those events. So does anybody have any questions on it?
What's TPT?
Your transaction privilege license, that's your sales tax.
Okay, because that's what was stated as concern from some of the peoples around here. Do we actually get monies out of them? They get monies, how do we know?
Exactly. So,
It's on the honor system?
Cabrina does get a report. I don't know how detailed it is, that she gets certain ones, but then this will actually require them to get this business license. That will be one of the requirements. Obviously, if they're doing retail sales, they have to have that TPT, and we vary with the state of Arizona that it's a valid one, that they have all that in place, along with their health permit if they're selling any kind of food, any other kind of specialty license that they may be required to have for whatever type of business that they're doing. So now we can actually monitor that and make sure it's getting done along with insurance, depending on the type of event that they're doing as
And you
well.
said events, but they can set up anywhere pretty much with permission of the property owner for up to 15 days now.
Correct, and then depending on what type of activity that they're doing, not only are they going to require the business license, but they may also have to go visit Jamie over there at planning and zoning and have to get a temporary use permit as well too, or for the food vendors and things like that, depending on where they're setting up and what they're participating in.
Okay, that was the concern of some businesses, how long they set up and if they were submitting their taxes. So we're gonna find out, I guess.
Yeah, so if if you're inquiring about the food vendors, then those are same rules that you guys just approved, everything that you did for that still apply, just the same.
Yeah.
This is just gonna require them to do more of a business license for, for a 15-day period is all that they can set up for. So they have to keep coming back to get reissued for that business license if they're just gonna do a temporary.
Hey, man.
Okay. Item 15.1, contracts agreement, substation bus and switch gear upgrade. Dan?
Mayor,
Oh.
I just need to read that in.
You have to read that?
Yeah.
Okay. Read it.
Ordinance number 021-014, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, amending Title V, Business Licenses and Regulations, Chapter 5.24, Temporary Business Licenses of the City of Safford Municipal Code.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mayor, council members, tonight's request is two parts, actually. The first part is to reallocate $14,236 from the copper replacement project budget to the design for the substation upgrade. And the substation upgrade is a request to award the contract to T&T Engineering for the design of the bus and switchgear upgrade. And the reasoning for the upgrade is the way that our bus is configured right now. If we wanted to do any maintenance or repairs on that bus work, we would have to do a citywide outage. And with this upgrade, we would be able to isolate sections of that bus and do the maintenance and repairs on that without any outages at all. And with that being said, I'll open it up to questions.
I'll move that we approve the substation, the substation bus and switch gear upgrade.
Second.
I do have
Go
some
ahead.
questions.
Go ahead.
Mr. Bratton, we've talked about the need for a future substation in here because of the centrally located, that substation being centrally located. Now, this switchgear is gonna help you in the future, so when we tie into it, because me and Mr. McGoy went with you on a tour and you showed us and explained you wanted to isolate these transformers. So, is this gonna help us in the future to sew another substation into that one?
It could, but actually what it's for is the existing substation to do the maintenance on that switchgear right there. That's one of the oldest parts of our substation. It's never had maintenance done on it since it's been installed. Because of the way it's configured, it requires a citywide outage. If we built another substation, depending on the location, we would probably take transmission into that other substation from wherever we decide to take it in from.
But either way, isolating so you'll be safe.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, Dan. Item 6, announcement of current events. Anybody have any? I do, John. Maybe for our next year's budget, why don't you guys go ahead and produce a bonus already in there, so we don't have to keep coming back and doing this every year. You guys can get the monies in there, and then, of course, it could be a council's vote, but if it's a set amount of money already, then it's a done deal. You don't have to have, things the way they go. So I'm gonna ask that you guys get that in the budget for next year, that the monies can be there, and of course, it comes back to the council to decide, but it's a set height point, okay? It can't be changed or modified at the last second. As far as the height, we can preset that height of $1,000, $2,000, whatever we want to do that. And that way, we already know where it's at in the budget. We don't have to sit there and have 60% come out of this budget and 40% coming out of the other. Anybody else?
Mayor, I have.
Go ahead.
The breakouts on the percentages are because it's fund accounting, so you have to do the breakouts. So you would want to take those monies from the different funds because that's where those employees are located.
Okay, so why can't we take it out of, for instance, I'm just gonna pick on utilities. Why couldn't you pick it out? Why couldn't you already have it set in the utilities to where it automatically comes out of their budget instead of just the general fund?
Mayor Couch, that's basically what we're doing. So each fund would fund the bonus for the employees that reside within that fund.
Okay.
Because that's how the financials have to operate.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll rob Peter to pay Paul, but yet it's all on paper. Go ahead, Mike.
Mayor, I would like to have for our next meeting on the agenda What's the possibility of getting a crosswalk out here on 8th and 8th for the kids? I got some complaints from some individuals about the kids almost getting hit out there while it's busy and all that.
Mayor Councilman Andazola, I can get with Lance and see what we can do.
Okay.
Are you saying paint some stripes
Yes.
of
Paint 'em
corner of
better.
8th and 8th?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else?
The-
Go ahead,
Okay,
Councilman Lopez.
when we don't have a meeting, the P-card report comes to us, but it's not on the next agenda to be able to talk about it if we wanted to. So just maybe put a note on there. Did anybody have any questions about it or not? That's all.
That's it? Okay, so noted. Item 17, report on anybody else, I'm sorry, anybody else? Operational items, update on extended library hours. Victoria, you're up.
Make it short.
If this meeting goes on too much longer, one of you guys are going to buy dinner.
I can go ahead and get started. The first couple of slides are a review while this is finishing loading. So good evening, Mayor and Council. I wanted to provide an update on the library operational hours, the extended hours on Saturdays. I brought you an update at the end of October, which was about halfway through the pilot program, and this is the update about almost 6 months at the end of the program. So just to kind of give a general review, our current hours right now are Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then right now we're doing pilot hours on Saturday from 10 a.m. Thank you. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We started that July 10th. So we've done a total, and it will be a total of 22 Saturdays after this week, this coming weekend, which is the 18th. We did close on Salsa Fest weekend. We had construction on the railroad that weekend. And then we also closed for Thanksgiving weekend due to the long holiday. So during that time, we've had computer use. They can check out materials. They can come in for general reference questions during those hours on Saturdays. We're doing 7 staff total. We're rotating in 3 or 4 week intervals. It just depends on if we like to have one supervisor in the building in case there is questions that the public does raise on those weekends. We do 5-hour work days. We come in at 9 a.m., get the building ready, and we're open from 10 to 2. Those hourly staff, we flex them out the following week. So they work a shorter day during the week after the Saturday. So this is the door count, and what I did is on your left-hand side is Saturday hours, and this is the average for each month from July to August, and the average over those 4 hours is 36, and we went up until this last weekend in December. And the door count, I compared that Monday through Thursday, only the days that we were open, and what I also did is halved it. So July was actually double the 102. So it would be closer to Councilman Hemfield's question last time I presented that the hours were not quite apples to apples. So I went ahead and halved those hours. So it's about 4.5 hours during the week to 4 on the weekend. So they're still a little, not quite exactly the same, but they're a lot closer. So you can see the numbers are definitely more busy during the week, Monday through Thursday, and we're averaging about 100 per day during the week, Monday through Thursday. So the circulation numbers, which is our check-ins, check-outs, renewals, anything that is moving in the building, and we only did physical materials. We've pulled those numbers every week, and I've compared them as well. So Saturday, we're averaging about 233 items a day, and Monday through Thursday, it's 955. So I averaged those weeks, Monday through Thursday, and then again, I have that number, I have the average. So we ended up with 955 items per day. So right now, Monday through Thursday, we've done 81 days as of this Saturday, or as of the end of last week. So based on our recommendation, we've checked use over pilot period. We're looking at door counts, looking at circulation. We're recommending we discontinue the program after this Saturday. This would be the final Saturday, and that would be the end of the pilot period, our initial pilot period that we wanted to try. Are there any questions before I move forward?
And Victoria, you're saying because it's, explain to me why your recommendations are to discontinue this. Feel like the city's not getting the best bang for their buck? I mean, if we want to look at it as a business venture,
That- Yes.
yes?
That's part of it, and also the customers that are coming in are not new customers.
They're not, I can't hear you.
They're not new
My
customers.
question. Not new.
They're
That
not-
was- That was gonna be my question.
They're
Are
not
we-
new customers.
Are we getting different?
We're really not. We were hoping that's what would happen, and what we're seeing is customers that come in during the week are also just coming in an extra day on the weekend, which is what we,
If we were getting new people.
Right.
yes, and that's what I was hoping for. We'd see a lot more new people, and we're not seeing them like we had hoped we were.
Now, my other question to you is, was there advertisement? I mean, there was and stuff, because I mean, this is really disappointing. I mean, I really wanted it to work, and I'm sure you did too.
I honestly thought the numbers would be a lot higher. I mean, we had it here, we had it online. The chamber's been really great in advertising and pushing it out for us. We've had it here in the building. We've told patrons that are consistent, that attend, that, hey, we're here Saturday, and we're just not seeing the numbers. And I was honestly very surprised when I started to pull all of these numbers over the last couple months, that the numbers just aren't going where I thought they were. But I did want to point out, we're doing a lot of other things. We received some ARPA funding through the state library, so we're going to be extending Wi-Fi in the parking lot. That's one project. We want to continue that. We do attend a lot of these outreach events. We're at the Harvest Festival, we're at the Salsa Fest, we're at the Back to School Resource Fair. We're trying to get out in the community so people know that we're here. And staff might not be here in the building, but we're out in the community. We did the light parade. That was another outreach event for us. We're putting up little free libraries. We're trying to provide materials for people, even when we're not open. We have a few that are opening little free libraries. We've been very fortunate. We've been receiving some donations on that front for those programs as well. And we're working on providing Wi-Fi in the parks, and we're really pushing that as well. So we're trying to provide services and we're not physically here.
Okay, well, dang it.
Yeah, I was hoping they would have worked too. And is there still a plan that you may utilize that other building?
Yes.
I wanted to ask that, but I was afraid that we're getting really close out of our operational items. But if you're okay with it proceeding, Tammy, then we can proceed.
It's actually.
Because I was going to ask the same question.
I thought it was a
Yes.
good question.
That's our next slide.
No, I agree. I wanted to ask it too, but I was like, this says update on library extended hours, and we're now talking about a building a mile down the road, but okay, we got okay, so let's go.
That's in my presentation.
Okay.
I wanted to bring that up, and we wanted to say that we appreciate you being willing to give us that building, because we are, and I've spoken with the city manager several times, our building, we have so many programs and services that, you know, we just have spacing, and we're constantly changing out the rooms and trying to use them multi-purpose. So for the space that you've given us, we want to do a maker space in there, which is basically providing like 3D printers, glow forges, laser cutters, trying to create, get the community to have a creative outlet.
Perfect.
You know, for small businesses. We want to put a recording studio in there. We want to do a program for special needs families. We know it's very underserved. We've been made aware of that, so we want to do that. And then we have some great partners at Dining with Diabetes, and we want to do some genealogy courses down there. So we're very excited about that building and the potential for it.
Great. All right. Anybody else have anything?
I messed up good.
I'm really disappointed, but it is what it is. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you.
Update on Parks and Recreations, Jamie?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This update, part of it is to thank Freeport McMoran and Sean Wenham for the $210,000 check that we've received for El Paso Park. It's ready to begin construction in the next year. The committee, I've been taking over more of my responsibilities that Susan would have taken over, and so I've been taking over the committee from Matthew. He filled in for me until I got on my feet, and the process that the committee has followed is visioning, designing, and they've evolved and done quite a bit of work. They will be finalizing some recommendations for you at their meeting this Wednesday, and they will bring a presentation to you in January with their recommendations. And one of the recommendations will be that they would like to continue their work in the next budget cycle. They'd like to be a continuous committee. So they've really stepped up and put a lot of thought and work into this, and I just wanted to give you a progress update.
Okay, so, did you have anything for the extended pool hours, or did that already come before us and we just didn't hear it?
That came before you a little, and what problem we had there was staffing with lifeguards once school started again. So I spoke with the manager after we closed the pool for the end of the season, and that was a really big problem, was once school started, all the lifeguards are students. So
Okay.
it'd be something we could look at again.
Okay. All right, anybody have anything else, Sue? Okay, thank you. Victoria, I'm sorry, I don't mean to call you back up, because I'm sitting here saying I was hungry, right? But, so there's nothing that happens on the weekends anymore after this Saturday?
Correct. We do have programs occasionally, like the community baby shower. Those we do
Those
about
community
quarterly.
things, so those will still be there, and they'll
Correct.
still be advertised and still
Correct.
be, okay.
Yeah, those aren't going away.
Okay.
Those are programs that we do.
But as far as anything new, then no, it's whatever's already on scheduled.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. All right, update on the gas department audits and update on the co-op gas exchange. And Jason, you're up.
Mayor Kaus and council members, good to see you this evening. I know it's the end of a long night. I'll try and be brief. I just wanted to give you guys some updates in our operations and positive notes that came through this. Who's gonna take care of me? I'm gonna start with our co-op exchange and just give you an update on where we're at with this. Through that approval was completed, the delineated work up there was part of what that exchange was going to be. This gas exchange has occurred, and we're currently in the process of completing the work with ADOT today, right there in front of the Maya. If you drive by, you can see that work going on. On the slide, it points out that we were hoping to having all those transfers completed with the individuals, not the bigger pieces, but the individuals. That work has been pushed a little bit with some issues that we had in some of our subgrade there, and so that'll be completed next week prior to our Christmas holiday. Just wanted to put that out there, that's the update where we're at with that co-op exchange as far as the gas side of it, and the water side where the co-op will be taking over that portion of Central that'll step outside of our range at that point will happen second quarter of next year, 2022. And then really we had 3 audits where the ACC came in and audited our gas department, specifically around damage prevention. They came out and did a field audit with our group, spent the day with them, and found no recordable issues or concerns with the group whatsoever. And that was in October. They came in for an annual standards review where they came in and reviewed all of our records. We've seen with other neighboring communities significant findings in their records review, and when they came through ours, they spent the day looking as hard as they could to try and find something in there, and there was no records whatsoever as far as any concerns with any of our record keeping in that gas department. And then third was the specialized anti-drug and alcohol misuse was a code compliance audit where they came in, did a significant impact and look into our system and our processes, and found that we met all other requirements of that code for the state. And so I really I know you guys got to get to hear all the negatives that come and the struggles that the departments have. I really wanted to bring the gas department forward tonight and just congratulate them on the hard work that they put in on a regular daily basis, and the fact that shows in these audits in the processes that we have in place, and the safety and the factor that comes with that. So that was really what we wanted to bring forward tonight, and just let you guys see that and recognize that within our departments. We had 2 minor findings with some installation around one of the gas installations with a developer not following a code that we hadn't followed up on that was corrected immediately, and so no additional findings were needed.
So on the update on the co-op, how many customers did we end up picking up?
So with that, our major customers in that was the ADOT facility and the FedEx facility. Within the additional let's go back up to that slide real quick. The actual services that we found within there, Raymond, I want to say 5. Did we have 5 additional individual contracts outside of those 2 majors?
Yeah, we have 23 for Montana Vista that has switched over. We have
That was the major.
4 for ADOT that have been switched over. We have 1 more for ADOT that we have to switch over. FedEx has been done, that's been switched over. And now all we have is 1 more for ADOT and 2 on Lone Star and 1 on Solomon Road.
Okay, so are we also picking up Montana Vista second phase as well?
Yes,
So
second
that was
phase is-
part of the co-op exchange, correct?
Yes, second
But
phase
basically
is-
Montana Vista, right?
Yeah, the full set phase 1 and 2.
Okay.
And that switchover was completed on had that date in
Last
there.
week.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Okay. So approximately what was our expense on the switchover, like the main lines that we had to do? Did we have to do much main lines? Did we have to do much valve exchange, or new valves? I mean, it was minimal.
Minimal, the minimal change, I think we had budgeted around 12,000, that was including the meters. We are less than 5,000 currently.
So
And we
we're
have-
quite a bit under budget on
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Good,
Quite a bit.
good.
So we've saved about 7,000.
But we're still not quite there though,
Today,
but.
yeah.
To date,
Not-
no,
not
but
complete.
the last 4 installs we
Perfect.
have to do, we're
Awesome.
looking at about $800 a piece.
Good.
And
Go ahead.
did I hear you, Mr. Brimhall, you said FedEx is ours
Yes.
and that area?
So the area, in the area maps is what is approved there on the right in small font. You can kind of see where that FedEx building falls within that tanned area. But yeah, it falls within our service area now.
I'd like to go see, because that's designated industrial, so we ought to be picking up some other future industrial sites in there.
Go all the way up to the river.
Yeah.
Good.
So that's the image there on the right. I know it's kind of hard to see.
Yes, sir. Kind of hard to see.
This.
That's okay,
Yeah, this piece here is our FedEx facility that goes on up to the cities, up to the river. Mayor Council, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion that everybody wants to hear. Let's go home.
Second. All those in favor?
So it makes me think of a new way.
Don't say it.